All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Pony Confidential by Christina Lynch.
Okay.
And as always, we like to kind of dig a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a whole stack of Goodreads reviews here that you guys have sent in.
Yeah.
And we're going to kind of sift through those different perspectives and see if we can figure out
Right.
what makes this story tick.
Yeah, what strikes me about this book is that it has this, really whimsical premise,
Hmm.
like a grumpy pony
Right.
solving a decades-old murder, but it actually uses that premise to explore some, really complex themes.
Yeah, it's not your typical, like, whodunit.
No, not at all.
One of the reviewers called it Homeward Bound meets a crime procedural.
I love that.
And I have to say, I was sold.
Yeah,
So just to kind of like set the stage,
sure.
we have Penny, who has been arrested for a murder that she supposedly committed when she was 12 years old.
Right.
And her childhood pony decides he's not going to stand for it.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that Pony isn't driven by purely, altruistic motives.
Right. No, he's got some baggage. He's got feelings of abandonment, maybe even a little bitterness towards humans.
Oh, interesting.
So this cross-country journey he embarks on to clear her name is kind of fueled by revenge as much as justice.
That's kind of what hooked me on this,
Yeah.
because it's not just a sweet-talking animal story.
Right.
He's complex, Pony is a complex character.
Absolutely.
He's got this, grumpy, sarcastic voice, and it really comes through in the narration.
Yeah.
And speaking of the narration, this dual perspective thing,
Yes.
chapters alternating between Penny and Pony, that seems to be a big hit with readers.
Yeah, it's really clever because on the one hand, you've got Penny who's trapped in the legal system dealing with her own struggles.
Right.
And on the other hand, you've got Pony out in the world facing these almost absurd challenges
Right.
with this cast of quirky animal companions. So it creates this really fascinating contrast.
Yeah, and it allows Lynch to explore these, two very different journeys simultaneously.
So Penny's forced to confront her past deal with this really complicated relationship with her daughter and try to navigate this justice system that may or may not be on her side.
Mm-hmm.
And then meanwhile, Pony is literally and figuratively finding his own path,
Yeah.
learning to trust again and maybe coming to terms with his own feelings of resentment.
Absolutely. And that ties into a point that several reviewers brought up, which is the plausibility of a 12-year-old,
Okay.
even being accused of murder.
Right.
Um, some people found it jarring, unrealistic,
Sure.
but others saw it as a way for Lynch to kind of critique the justice system itself,
Right.
particularly how it fails those who are most vulnerable.
Yeah, it definitely pushes the boundaries of realism, but that seems to be kind of like part of her style.
Mhm.
You know, she takes this fantastical premise, this talking pony
Right.
on a quest for justice, and uses it to spark a conversation about some very real, very serious issues.
Yeah, and that's where the complexity, I think, of this book really shines.
Okay.
It's not just an escape. It's an invitation to really think critically about animal cruelty, about the flaws in our institutions, about the bonds of family and forgiveness.
Okay, so we've got this grumpy, popcorn-loving pony,
Yeah, he loves his popcorn.
a murder mystery that spans decades,
Right.
these deeper themes that are simmering beneath the surface.
Uh-huh.
But what about the rest of the cast? I mean, Pony's not exactly traveling solo, is he?
He's not. No, he's got this whole entourage of animal sidekicks.
Like who?
A pessimistic goat,
Oh, wow.
a comfort chicken who's surprisingly insightful,
Okay.
even a network of birds providing directions.
What?
They add so much humor and heart to the story.
It's like a classic road trip movie, but with animals.
I know, right?
And it seems like those encounters aren't just for laughs, though. Like, each of these characters, no matter how silly they seem, they offer Pony, like, a different perspective, a different lesson.
Exactly. They highlight his ability to communicate with other species.
Right.
This almost magical understanding that goes beyond words. It's as if Lynch is suggesting that empathy and connection can exist in the most unexpected places.
Even for a grumpy pony.
Even for a grumpy pony.
With a little help from a comfort chicken.
That's right. A comfort chicken and a wise old goat.
So we're really starting to see how this story goes beyond just a simple animal adventure.
Definitely.
But there's a lot more to unpack here.
Yes.
What about this mystery itself? How does it unfold alongside Pony's journey?
Right.
And what about the ending? Did it satisfy readers?
Yeah.
We'll dig into all of that right after this.
It's amazing how Lynch is able to balance that lighthearted tone with some really poignant moments.
Yeah.
One reviewer mentioned this scene where Pony overhears a conversation and realizes that he may have misjudged Penny.
Oh, wow.
like completely, and it's this turning point for him.
Okay.
And it really highlights that theme of forgiveness.
That's what makes it so compelling. It's not afraid to delve into those like raw emotions,
Yeah.
to show the complexities of these relationships,
Yeah.
even between like humans and animals.
Exactly.
And this kind of brings us back to the murder mystery itself,
Okay.
because some reviewers found it a bit predictable,
Yeah.
whereas others were like kept guessing until the very end.
Right.
What was your take?
I think the predictability thing is interesting because
Okay.
some readers might crave those twists and turns,
Right.
the shock reveals.
Yeah.
But in Pony Confidential, the mystery kind of unfolds gradually,
Okay.
almost organically,
I
alongside Pony's journey. So it's less about the who and more about the why.
I see.
It's more about understanding, like, the events that led up to this tragic situation.
So it's less about the destination, it's more about the journey,
Exactly.
which, come to think of it, mirrors Pony's own experience.
It does.
He's not just trying to solve a crime, he's on this like journey of self-discovery.
Exactly. And that journey takes him through some pretty wild encounters.
Right, those animal companions we were
Yeah.
talking about before, like the pessimistic goat, the comfort chicken.
That's right.
They're not just comic relief. It's like each of them represents a different aspect of Pony's internal struggle,
I love that.
right?
Yeah.
Like each encounter is like a mini lesson for him, pushing him to confront his own biases, his own fears.
Absolutely.
And it all kind of circles back to this idea of interspecies communication.
Yeah.
It's like almost intuitive understanding
Right.
that transcends language.
Right. There's that scene where Pony is lost and a network of birds guides him to safety.
Oh.
It's not just a convenient plot device.
Okay.
It speaks to this like deeper connection between all living beings.
And that connection extends to the human characters as well.
Yeah.
Like Pony encounters some truly kind-hearted people along the way.
Right.
It's like proving that compassion is not limited to a single species.
It's like Lynch is reminding us that even in the darkest of situations,
Mm.
there are these glimmers of hope,
Mm.
these moments of kindness that can change the course of events.
But let's not forget about those like darker aspects, because the book doesn't shy away from portraying the harsh realities of animal cruelty.
No, it doesn't.
A lot of reviewers praised Lynch for like tackling this issue head on
Yeah.
and showing the emotional and physical toll that it takes
That's
on
what
these
it is.
creatures.
Yeah, and that ties back to the criticism of the justice system.
Right.
Because some reviewers felt that portraying a 12-year-old as a murder suspect was too far-fetched.
Yeah.
But it seems like Lynch is using this kind of extreme scenario to highlight
Okay.
the vulnerabilities of young people
Right.
within the legal system.
It's definitely a thought-provoking element.
It is.
Makes you question how we treat those accused of crimes,
Yeah,
particularly those who might not have the resources or the support to defend themselves.
exactly. And it challenges us to consider the lasting impact
Okay.
of those accusations.
Yeah.
The stigma that can follow someone even if they're proven innocent.
So there are like multiple layers to unpack here.
Yeah,
We've got the captivating mystery, we've got the humor and the heart of these animal characters,
Right.
we've got these deeper societal issues that Lynch is weaving into the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one question that keeps nagging at me.
Okay.
Is Pony Confidential just a charming story about a talking pony, or is it something more?
That's the beauty of it.
Okay.
It operates on multiple levels.
Right.
On the surface, it's this whimsical adventure that will appeal to animal lovers and mystery fans alike.
Yeah, sure.
But beneath that surface, there's a depth,
Yeah?
poignancy that really resonates
Okay.
long after you finish the last page.
It makes you wonder if Pony's journey could be seen as a metaphor for our own personal struggles.
I think so.
Like his quest to clear Penny's name,
Mm-hmm.
to overcome his own past trauma. It's a story of resilience and redemption.
Absolutely. And that's where we get into like the really interesting stuff.
Okay.
What is Lynch saying about forgiveness, about the second chances, about the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds?
We've touched on a lot of big ideas here,
We have.
but I'm curious to hear what our listeners think.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to suspend disbelief
Hmm.
and embrace a story about a talking pony solving a murder?
Right.
Or is there something more profound at play here?
Yeah.
Something that speaks to our own human experiences?
That's the question we'll be grappling with as we wrap up our deep dive into Pony Confidential.
Okay.
Does this book simply entertain,
Right.
or does it challenge us to see the world and ourselves in a new light?
As we've been talking about Pony Confidential, I can't stop thinking about how stories can, like, transport us. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we're willing to suspend our disbelief and let ourselves get swept away by talking animals and these like fantastical journeys.
Yeah.
But like what happens when those stories also hold up a mirror to our own lives?
That's the magic of Lynch's writing. You know,
Okay.
she blends this whimsical, almost childlike premise with these really profound themes
Right.
about forgiveness, second chances, and the enduring bonds of love. It's like a reminder that even in fiction, even in a story about a pony detective, we can find truths that resonate deeply within us.
And it seems like a lot of reviewers had that very experience. Like
Yeah.
several mentioned being moved to tears,
Oh,
particularly by the ending. So, what is it about Pony's journey that evokes such strong emotions?
I think it's the universality of his struggle.
Okay.
You know, he starts out as this like grumpy, cynical character,
Mm,
consumed by anger and resentment.
right.
But through his interactions with other animals, with the humans he encounters along the way,
Yeah.
he begins to soften, to open his heart to the possibility of connection and forgiveness.
Yeah.
And it's a transformation that, like a lot of us can relate to,
Right.
that struggle to let go of past hurts and embrace the possibility of healing.
And it's not just Pony's journey.
Right.
Penny, despite being physically confined,
Yeah.
she also goes through this like really profound emotional arc.
So Jesse,
You know, she has to confront her own demons, reconcile with her estranged daughter, and ultimately come to terms with the events of her past.
it's like their journeys are intertwined,
Yeah.
these parallel tracks of self-discovery and redemption.
Right.
And the fact that one involves a cross-country trek with this like motley crew of animals,
Right.
while the other unfolds within the walls of a prison cell,
Mm.
just makes it all the more compelling.
It really makes you wonder if Lynch is suggesting that, like, true freedom comes not from physical liberation,
Mm-hmm.
but from inner peace, from the ability to forgive ourselves and others.
And from the courage to confront our pasts,
Yeah.
to acknowledge our mistakes, and to keep moving forward, even when the path ahead seems uncertain.
So for you, the listener, what's the takeaway here?
Yeah.
Is Pony Confidential just this lighthearted escape, this
Yeah.
fun romp with a talking pony? Or is there a deeper message embedded within this seemingly whimsical tale?
I think it's both, and that's what makes it so brilliant.
Okay.
You know, it allows us to enter the story on one level, to enjoy the humor and the adventure, but then it slowly reveals these layers of meaning,
Right.
these thought-provoking reflections on justice, forgiveness, and the power of empathy.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most profound lessons come from the most unexpected sources.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a grumpy pony teaching us about resilience or a comfort chicken showing us the importance of kindness.
I love that.
The point is to be open to the possibility of surprise, to
Mhm.
the idea that even a whimsical story can hold deep truths about the human experience.
And to remember that as Pony discovers on his journey, the power of connection and forgiveness can transform even the most hardened heart.
So if you're looking for a book that will entertain you, challenge you, and maybe even touch your soul, I highly recommend taking a deep dive into Pony Confidential. It's a story that stays with you long after you turn that final page. A reminder that even in a world full of darkness, there's always room for hope, for second chances, and for the magic of a really good story. And that wraps up our deep dive for today. We hope you enjoyed the journey, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of the world around us.